Hi there, LinkedIn, and welcome to the 11th episode of The Biz Live. My name is Jamie Breeze. I'm your host for today. My co-host is Sarah Brooks. You'll be meeting her in a minute. We've got a great show lined up for you. We've got a fantastic guest, a leader of leaders. His name is Ian Workman. So first and foremost, please introduce yourself into the chat. Tell us what you do. Let's see a little bit of networking, because of course we are run by a networking company, and I will see you in a few moments' time. Okay, so as mentioned, Evo Networking is behind The Biz Live. This is episode number 11, and we are very grateful to all of you who are now dialing in, if that is the right parlance. It's not tuning in, because that goes back to the days of the cathode ray tube and all the rest of it. Let's have a look who is coming into the show before we meet Sarah, the co-host and co-producer, and our very special guest today, all the way from another part of the United Kingdom, the Managing Director of Barclays Business UK, Ian Workman. Good morning to you, Ian Porter. Very nice to see you here. We have in the former mayor and now a senior at Western College. Hello there, Jodie Brown. Very good morning to you. Deborah as well over there in Wales. Kate Adey, very good to see you as well. And a very good morning to Jamie from Swindon. Alison Woodhead, and so many more people. Keep introducing yourself into the chat. We will name check you. Sally Tullett. I recognize you from Barclays. Kieran Windsor. Very nice to see you. And Kerry Collier as well. A very good morning. So many people tuning in. The majority of the people, not to put you off or nothing, will be tuning in or watching when it's reposted by LinkedIn, by our friends at LinkedIn, straight after this live broadcast. So you can, if you're watching on the restream or the repost, you can continue to network, chat, add comments. It helps us. We want more and more people to see this show. And once again, we're accredited by LinkedIn. About a year and a half ago, they started piloting this thing called LinkedIn Live in the United States. Then a few months ago, back in August, they brought it out here in Western Europe, in the UK. And about 2,500 people around the world out of the 764 million have been given this accreditation so far, and more people are getting it. And we're very, very grateful to Alana in New York, other friends in Dublin, and other friends in India for helping us, guide us, and get this to where we are. We're also simulcasting on Facebook Live and on our legacy channel, YouTube Live as well. Okay, so once again, you're watching The Biz Live. If you're just joining us now, my name is Jamie Breeze. I'm behind Evo Networking. This is fundamentally a networking show, but it's transmogrified into more of a business chat show. We have got a great theme for today, lots and lots of takeaway. And as I mentioned, our guest is Ian Workman. So continue to introduce yourself into the chat. Very, very grateful again to Adam and Karina and all the team at Professional Sponsorships for sponsoring us. And we will be meeting my co-host Sarah Brooks in a few moments' time. Please stay tuned. Good morning, Sarah Brooks.
Good morning, Jamie. How are you this morning?
Wide-eyed and bushy-tailed once again, and very much looking forward to enjoying a two-shot Nespresso. Oh, I don't know if I can say that. Yes, LinkedIn is a global platform. Let's see if we can get a sponsor in Nespresso next time. I'm drinking enough of it at the moment. So tell us a little bit about today's theme. And again, if you're just chiming in now, please do introduce yourself into the chat. Hello there, Claire Rowland. Very nice to see you from Business Insider, of course. So many more people. Paul Binning there as well. Samantha Collins, Chris Park. Chris, yes, the former director of Lloyd's. If Ian's listening, there you go. Hope there's no ill feeling. And Tim Fusselbear as well. Very good morning to you. Okay, so tell us about today's theme, Sarah.
Yeah, well, we're all in it together, aren't we, Jamie? Everyone is welcome here. So yes, we're obviously going to be speaking to Ian in a minute. And Ian in himself is very interesting, as we know him. But he's obviously MD of Barclays Business. And today we're going to be focusing in on SMEs and how they're impacted by COVID and what they can do to mitigate the effects, if you like, and also to investigate what we can do to make our finances as robust as possible as
Yes.
we look forward to this year, and hopefully coming out, everything will be easing, and how to make ourselves as strong as possible as we go into that, hopefully the sunnier uplands out there that we're looking forward to.
Great. So please tell us about today's theme. I can see it's financial advice for SMEs. Is that right?
Yeah, so our talking point today is following on from that, really. Who or what has really helped you over the last year in what you're doing in your business? It could be something, it could be a decision you've made, it could be a person or financial help, it could be food stuff, or heaven forbid, drink. But what is it that's really helped you? Please pop it in the chat. And let's give each other some supportive kind of ideas as well going forward.
Great stuff. So we've got a great theme, we've got a great talking point, and as Sarah says, please do use this opportunity to use particularly the LinkedIn live chat, which if you're watching right now live, you will definitely be able to comment and post in. So not only introduce yourself, historically we've had people chiming in from all over the world. So if you're from outside of the United Kingdom, please do let us know where you're from. And crucially, let's get in and stuck in there with the talking point. Who or what has helped you most during the last year? I laugh because we're all in it together, as Sarah Brooks rightly said. So let's have a look at and just give a shout out to a few of our other guests who are chiming in live today through the platform of LinkedIn Live. There's Martin Mouseed, a very good morning to you. I think we've said hello to Kieran, it's Martin, Tim Fussell, so many. Hello there, Kerry as well. From Centrix Legal, Rachel Hargreave is watching. Daniela Clark, she runs a recruitment company in the southwest of England. There we are. Alfred Recruitment. Martin Lax, I think, has watched almost every show so far. A big hello to you. Technology company driving forward the cutting edge of recruitment. Jimmy John's there as well. A very good morning to you. And for those of you who are watching for the first time, LinkedIn has given us this accreditation to host a live business show. So that's what you're watching. It's called the Biz Live. We have a guest today, but I must also, because it's a live stream, say thank you to Adam Rook and Karina Bush. I'll tell you a bit more about their company later on, but they are 5 years old. They're called Professional Apprenticeships. They started off with 2 people, and they're taking on their 14th or 15th member of staff this March. So a huge congratulations to them. So as I said, and Sarah mentioned, our guest today is Ian Workman, and our theme is financial advice for SMEs. We need to probably ask Ian a bit more about the definition of an SME. I hear different things. Sometimes it's under 250 members of staff, which seems unbelievable. That could be called a small to medium business. And then I know another well-known bank defines it as under 250 million, somewhat confusingly. So we've also got the talking point as well. So do chime in right now. Let us know who or what has helped you most during the last year. I'd really like to find out. And as I said, a shameless plug for Evo Networking. We meet across the southwest of England and also Wales now as well. It's free to attend your first meeting. We're a membership-based organisation, 5 years old. And I'm very, very pleased to say, as I touched on last week, we've opened up a new company. It's called Evo Ultra. Sarah is involved. Ian is involved as well. And it's led by General Sir Peter Ward. He's the former Commander-in-Chief of the Land Forces and then left the army a few years ago as the head of the army, the Chief of the General Staff. He is a co-founder of Amicus and a director of a company called General Dynamics Corporation, which is a $45 billion company. And I think it's the 92nd biggest company, to be precise, in the United States of America. So he will be leading the first group. We launch on the 17th of March. It is by invite only, and we're inviting CEOs and principals of some of the larger businesses to join this peer group and support each other as well. So very excited to be part of that. Ian Workman is one of our founder members and will be leading the second group, I'm pleased to say, but we'll talk about that on another show. So once again, let's give a very big thumbs up, or if you can see, if you're watching live on LinkedIn, there's a little hand, and I think it's colored orange or purple. You can let's see some hearts come up if that's okay. And we're going to welcome our guest today, Ian Workman. Please, let's see those hearts and hands go up and some thumbs up. Thank you. Hello there, Ian. How do you do today?
Good morning, and good morning, everyone, and thanks for inviting me today. It's great to see so many messages coming through already.
It's great. You're a big draw for us, Ian. People have got to know and like you, and we've done a lot of promotion for this show as well. We hope the final viewership will be in the thousands, as it was with our pilot episode as well. So hopefully you are our good luck charm today. So it's time for us to say a little farewell to Sarah Brooks. But if you have got a question for Ian, I know you haven't heard from him yet, but trust me, he's a fascinating guy with a great story and lots of advice. So please do start popping your questions in the chat now. Introduce yourself and then pop a question into the chat separately. Sarah is going to go away now and moderate the conversation as a co-producer. And then what we're going to do in about 15 minutes time, 20 minutes time, we're going to come back to Sarah and we're going to bring out a whole load of those questions from you to ask to Ian, who is literally at the cutting edge of business right now. Okay, Sarah Brooks, we will see you in a little bit.
See you in a bit.
Thank you. Bye. Ian, it's just you and me, freeze a crowd. So,
wow.
How are you?
I'm a bit nervous now. You built me up there, Jamie. You know, if your viewing figures go down at the end of this, then I'm in trouble, really, aren't I?
I'll be switching banks quicker than you can. No. I have to say, we joined both businesses now, the aforementioned Ultra and Evo, both bank with Barclays, and it's been really good. It's really good to see you embracing the tech. I have to say, and all the banks are customers in some way, shape, or form, as I'm sure you're aware, and have been in other businesses. But the Barclays app really does make it easy to run a business from a smartphone. Just saying. So today
we're very proud of it. Very proud.
Yeah,
of it.
It works. It works. Some others are a little bit clunky, but and if you're watching today, I did invite lots of people from the banking sector. You need to up your game in the smartphone app because Barclays are blazing trail. Love the fact you get your statements there as well. And I should also add that Ian's got a fascinating sort of backstory, but we absolutely want to go into that now. But we also want to try and get some great takeaway and advice. So once again, if you're just tuning in now, you've just got the live link or you've seen a notification on LinkedIn, Facebook, or indeed our legacy channel on YouTube, then please jump into LinkedIn and ask a question. Sarah will do her best and we will get round to them in about 15, 20 minutes time. So Ian, once again, great to have you on the show, of course. You're the Managing Director of Barclays Business UK. I want to just talk a bit about your background because I know, because we've spoken before, that you were brought up in Swansea. And tell us about your first job. Was it at the bank or were you doing something beforehand?
Oh, wow. That's going back a bit. So, yes, born in Newport and then moved to Swansea when I was, or just outside Swansea, a place called Punter when I was 16. So good to see some Welsh people on the call today. So, actually my first job was at 16 and I worked in a DIY store called Do It All, which for those of you old enough as me, it used to have a really annoying theme tune to it, which I can still remember to this day. And actually amazes my wife that I spent 2 years working in a DIY shop part-time, and I am still appalling at DIY. I learned nothing in those 2 years, quite frankly, on DIY. I learned lots about customer service, but very little about DIY. And then I joined Barclays at 18, straight from doing my A-levels.
Right. And was your first role, I'm guessing it was something like being a bank teller, as I used to call it. Were you working like customer facing?
Well, actually, it was. So actually, going back there, so you're talking 1989. You came in as a junior. Office juniors still existed those days, and so your job was to make the tea. So I worked in a little branch in Ammanford in West Wales. I think it was probably about 20, 30 people worked there in those days. And I remember that the kitchen was on the 3rd floor. And of course, most of the staff were on the banking hall on the ground floor. So I quickly had to learn how to carry trays of tea up and down the stairs. My other job was to water the plants, and I do remember in my second week getting told off by Mr. Williams, the branch manager, because I'd killed his plants. And there was a wobble then, Jamie, because I was 18, I'd done my A-levels and thinking, all my mates are at university having fun, and here I am stood in front of the manager being told off for not watering the plants. It wasn't quite what I envisaged banking to be, but it was a really good grounding. And then from there on, obviously, yes, I moved on to front office. So you start off in the back office in banking in those days, and then I moved to become a cashier. And actually, I loved being a cashier. That was great because you met so many businesses. And you know, in those days, of course, so much of it was cash. And on a Monday, to have all the businesses bring their cash in over the counter, it was great. I love those days. So it was a really interesting couple of years working in branch banking, and then I moved from there to spend some time across different branches in South Wales, if I'm honest. But very early on, I became really interested in business. And SMEs in particular, and that's partly due to my background. So my dad was a sole trader, so he had a little business. So I was used to sort of how that worked in the background, and then more latterly, my father-in-law ran a bigger size business. So I guess it's always been in my background. And so it's something I've been really interested in. So I've probably spent, of my 30 years at Barclays, probably about 25 years of those working with businesses of all different sizes. So small, medium, some FTSE 250 companies as well.
Well, what is moving forward? So amazing that you've literally been in this company all this time, and you've had this hopefully, I mean, an incredible journey, reaching the giddy heights of the managing director. What going back to my initial point about what an SME actually is, what is an SME in you know, not necessarily Barclays parlance, but in your world, what is an SME? Define it.
Yeah, so the bit that I work with today is with businesses up to 6.5 million turnover. So we have just over 1 million SMEs, as we call them, in the UK. Wow. So that's the small business side, and that ranges from your startups up to about sort of 6.5 million. It's a rough parameter. And then we sort of do have a separate team that look after what we call sort of the mid-corporate team, which is still SMEs, which go up to about £20 million. The problem with the definition of SME, it's so broad and so wide. I remember talking to an investment banker once, talking about small business. So I assumed he was talking about my world, and actually, no, he was talking about small businesses being businesses that turned over 250 million or less. So I think it depends who you're talking with, but my world it's sort of 6.5 million turnover and below.
What are the you know, you're right there at the coalface. You know, we first met just over a year ago, and we were talking about something. Actually, we were both talking about supporting SME businesses, and we met through a mutual friend, and actually through Ian Rand, actually was the former CEO, if I remember. And
that's right.
Very, very grateful to Ian if you are watching. You know, the fact you can write to the CEO of a bank and get a response and an introduction, it does show that networking works. Talking of which, indeed, do connect with each other if you're watching, by the way. There was this wonderful LinkedIn live feed they've given us. Do connect. Use this as an opportunity to meet fellow business owners, or perhaps some people who are emerging, looking to start a business. Now is the time to start connecting with some of these people in the chat. I really do recommend it. LinkedIn's a fantastic platform. I'm not just saying that because we're on here. It does, you know, networking really does work. So Ian, so we talked a little bit about the definition of an SME, and I know that's really helpful to sort of establish that. What are some of the, you know, as I said, you're right there at the coalface at the moment. You have been since way back in, well, probably February, March time, a year ago. Are you not absolutely cream crackered?
Yes. So I think, look, the big priority for Barclays and all banks is to deliver the government finance. That was the ask of the government, and that's what they wanted banks and financial institutions to do to support the UK economy through this pandemic. And look, I mean, I remember back in last March, April, actually getting the products up and running, the bounce back loans and the Sybil's loans. I mean, the volumes. I think in the first 3 weeks we did something like 10 years worth of small loans in those first few weeks. So it was an intense period. As we go into 2021, actually, you know, the products are working pretty well now. The bounce back loan for us is very digital. You mentioned the app earlier on, Jamie. For Barclays customers, you can go through that. I think the big challenge for us, Jamie, is people forget sometimes, you know, we're running a business as well. So my job is I'm responsible for the bits that you can see. So the relationship managers across the UK, that's the bit I do. And then we have product teams, everybody that build the stuff. But as you can imagine, back in those pandemic, when we first went into lockdown, you know, all of a sudden having a challenge of moving 1,000 people to work from home, you know, in terms of our contact centers where customers are usually used to calling in, moving all those colleagues actually to work from home so they could take calls at the same time as wanting to support those millions of small businesses and SMEs that needed finance and needed our help. So it was quite a challenging period as actually in terms of running a business. Even basic things like just getting hold of a laptop. I want to remember what stage trying to get hold of headsets, and there was nowhere in the country to get hold of those. So that was a real challenge for us, the business. And like many big businesses, it was a big challenge in supporting business at that stage. Our call waiting times were long, etc. But I think we're through that. I think our focus now is more about supporting businesses in terms of we use some clever data where, for example, we're trying to look at businesses that we think might have a potential liquidity problem later in the year. So can we anticipate and help businesses? So can we talk to businesses and say, have you thought about what the future looks like? Particularly with the bounce back and Sybil's loans, as far as we know, coming to an end at the end of March, making sure those businesses that are eligible for it and it's appropriate for, that we've had a discussion so they know that it's available and there's funding there for them. And I think that's the really important bit. The other bit is also talking to businesses, and you'd mentioned networking, Jamie, and networking is really important. The privilege of working with 1 million SMEs, and our relationship managers across the UK work with thousands of businesses, is that we can join events like this, we can work with Evo. Barclays are a member of Evo. We work with you because actually what we can do is I might have spoken to a dozen businesses yesterday, and therefore actually I've got a dozen snippets of bits of information which I can then share. And I think that's our focus now, is how do we support that growth, and how do we support that recovery, which we're all fingers crossed for in 2021.
Wow, just thinking about the enormity of the challenge. Supporting 1 million businesses here, and that's the weight of the world on your shoulders. Look, can I ask for some advice? I mean, we'll certainly at the end, I know there'll be a number of questions, I can see them already, but could we ask you on behalf of the SME community, of which myself and Sarah are, for some advice? What should they do, re their finances, how to make them robust? Is there sort of key points who's a financial expert, put your financial whiz hat on and give me advice, if that's okay.
Yeah. So the key is obviously the forecasting, and really understanding what does the future look like, and actually understanding, okay, what does your finance look like in a normal situation? What does it look like in a pandemic situation? And also, there's a lovely word I use, which is called sensitivity analysis. So what happens if is the big question. What happens if turnover doesn't recover? What happens if you see a 10% drop in turnover? But equally, what happens if your turnover grows? Because actually, we might get a bounce. We're not, a lot of economists are talking about in previous recessions, actually, when the economy recovers, you do get a bounce. And we've also not mentioned that magic word called Brexit. We are an independent country now, Jamie. So, what impact is that having on your business? So it's a bit of a crystal ball, but it's a really important crystal ball. And I always say to businesses, I know it's hard and I know it's difficult to predict, but, have a go. See, and actually, it'll, if nothing else, it prompts you to think. And then following from that, once you've done your forecast, work with your accountant, go and talk to your bank as early as you can. I see far too many examples when businesses come to us at the last minute and they've got a problem, and sometimes that's too late. Actually, those businesses come to say, Ian, do you know what? I think in June I might have a cash flow problem. If the pandemic, doesn't recover, or if I'm a hotel and we don't get bookings in July, August, and the staycation doesn't happen, I might have a problem in the autumn. Those are really good, in-depth, meaningful conversations you can have with your bank manager, to really understand in your bank, to say, okay, I think I'm going to have a problem. What should I be doing? Where can I go for help? How can I structure myself going forward? Now, the other interesting thing is, Jamie, we always talk about debt, but actually 70% of SMEs don't borrow money. Okay, it's a huge percentage. People think, so there's lots of conversations outside borrowing money you should be thinking about. Actually, where are new markets you should be looking at? Networking is really important. Where are the networking opportunities I can go and talk to other businesses in? Really interesting anecdotal we're getting on Brexit. So what we're seeing is we're hearing anecdotal feedback that cost of carriage is going up, imports are taking longer to come into the countries, etc. So the supply chain is going through a bit of a funny period as people adjust to this new era. And actually what some suppliers and some customers are telling us is they're more focused on buying British. and looking for British suppliers. And so, look, that's something else. How can you take advantage of actually the new world and this independence that Brexit does to give us? Whether you're Brexiteer or you don't like it, we're here. So, see what the opportunities are for you as well. So even if you don't borrow money, go and have those conversations with your bank. Go and have those conversations with your accountants, your professional advisors, and on events like this as well, Jamie.
Thanks, Ian. You mentioned the B word. I remember back in the day when it all took place. I was watching avidly. I took a neutral position, as all business networking groups should do. But we seem to have come through it somehow. Back in April 2018, I reached out to the then Secretary of State for International Trade, Dr. Liam Fox, MP, who's also a member of Parliament for our constituency, and he was very good enough to come along and talk at a business centre called Lee Court, a kind of a hub for all the businesses pretty much in the southwest. And it was a pretty knockout presentation, and he knew his onions, certainly. And we had a businessman who was our first guest on the show back in September, called Ajif Jevwikaram, who owns an international restaurant business called Las Iguanas in Turtle Bay. So he was there to sort of put about his international perspective about opening in Germany. Absolutely fascinating. And jump forward 2 years, here we are. We've come through it. I know that you've been on tour recently with Barclays. I've watched a few of them, and indeed helped, to send out a few emails encouraging people to come along and take part. How was that as you went around Great Britain virtually, talking to people about Brexit? What was your sort of, if you put your finger up about take a reading, what was your view?
It was really, so it was fascinating, Jamie. So just to say, it was virtually, it was on Facebook Live. So I haven't been out traveling and breaching any rules, but it was really interesting. If I wind back 6 months ago, businesses were very uncertain. We had the pandemic to deal with. We had, Brexit. Would they get a deal? Wouldn't they get a deal? What would that deal look like? How do you prepare for it? It was incredibly difficult for businesses. And I talk about forecasting. It was even more difficult then because people really didn't know what the world was going to look like. So there was lots and lots of questions around, what do we think it will look like, what the trading, and what can we do to prepare for it? If I fast forward now, we did an event, I think about 2 weeks ago on Facebook, talking about the post-deal period and how businesses can manage that. A lot more positive, really, really interesting in terms of looking at the questions and comments coming through. It's almost like SMEs are saying now, right, okay, we know what the deal is. We've got the certainty in terms of we know what's been agreed, albeit there is still quite a few things that still need to be agreed. And so people are now trying to get their head around, okay, do I need an office abroad? Unlikely, but some customers have gone that. Do I need to employ people to do the documentation? What is the new documentation? Where do I go to get help? And so the SMEs have turned now from being very sort of, I don't know what to do, to, okay, I've got the plan, I now need to address it, where can I go for help? I think that's really interesting, and it's really good to hear some of the stories of businesses really thinking, okay, about their supply chains, etc. If I'm a betting man, Jamie, and I might be totally wrong on this, and I have no inside sight, I think we could see Boris doing a Buy British campaign post-pandemic, really embracing, an economy there. So I think actually, if you're a British company, I think that's where we'll go later in this year. I don't know. I might be wrong, but that's my gut feeling on it, just to give that economy a bit of a boost later year.
It's quite a. Well, I should say, a few years ago, I hosted I co-promoted and hosted with an event with Boris. I'm name dropping today, aren't I? So
look at you, cabinet ministers, prime ministers.
Yeah. It was really good fun. As I said, I am genuinely non-political, and it was called Boris Means Business, and there was a reason behind it. But it was great to be there, hosting it with him. I did an auction with him as well, and I have to say he was a better auctioneer than me, and I've been doing it for nearly 25 years as well. So, but he struck me as a very sort of kind of a very bright guy, and he did go around shaking everyone's hands, asking them questions, and getting a point of view. So I was kind of, I was certainly intrigued that he was very customer facing. Then there was this big crowd, big audience as well, and it's really, really hard to think of how in these few years how things have changed in this country and how things have changed in the economy as well. And I wonder what he would say now if he was looking at where we are and with the pandemic and the extended challenges of Brexit as well. And how could he have possibly, I'd love to have been the person in the audience rather than moderating the thing, actually asking that question to see into a crystal ball. But I'm going to ask you, as a leader of leaders as well, to do a little bit of crystal ball gazing. You did touch on the crystal ball a moment ago. And then I want to ask you about your postgraduate, which is very exciting as well. I believe it's going to be in studying in Wales as well, which is how you fit that in as well. Lord only knows, but I must ask. So, firstly, just briefly, because I want to get to some questions. And by the way, if you have got some questions for Ian Workman, please do drop them into the chat now. We will come to them in a moment. We'll bring Sarah in. Just a little bit of crystal ball gazing, because you have got your finger on the pulse of a million businesses. What I asked Michelle Michael this a couple of weeks ago at MBE, and I asked Graham Workman, former MD of Clark's UK and Europe, last week. When do you think we are going to be through the worst of this, to the point that as British businesses and employees, many of whom are watching, can sense a sense of normality? I know COVID's with us for the long run and the vaccination is helping, but when do you think we can expect some sense of normality?
God, that is a good question. I think I was just referring about Boris, etc. We've got to remember this country, the SMEs account for, I think it's something like 75% of employers in the UK. Yes, okay, some of the big, large corporates, employ big numbers, 50, 60,000 people. But actually, SMEs are the backbone of the economy, and that's why they are so important. And if I was forecasting, the Chancellor's got a budget coming up in March, he must have that on his mind, thinking about how can he support SMEs. I think, Jamie, in answer to your specific question about when are we going to come at this, it's so difficult to tell, isn't it? I mean, the indications are that the vaccine program's going really well. Yesterday we heard, the health secretary and the prime minister suggest that the summer could be good. My gut feeling is we need the summer to be good. Okay, so much of the UK economy relies on retail, wholesale, hospitality, and leisure. They really need our support, and actually the summer period is a really critical period for them. And if you think back last year, we had a fantastic summer, weather was wonderful. We need that as well as the vaccine. We need the sun to come out to really get people out spending. I think it'll be, slightly different, hopefully in a safer way. I think then on the back of that, it's around consumer confidence. And it's really interesting because if you look at, I saw the mortgage figures this morning, reported by the Bank of England. Mortgage approvals are an all-time high. Now, part of that is because of the stamp duty threshold coming up for review again in March. But it shows that there is some consumer confidence out there. It shows that consumers are prepared to actually move house. They're prepared to take on a mortgage. And that actually indicates to me that, okay, there is some confidence out there. The worrying bit for me, Jamie, is that there's almost a divergence of the population. There's an element of the population actually through COVID has done okay in that, they've retained their job, they've been furloughed, or they've maintained an income. And actually, because they've not been going out, they've not been like me buying my latte coffee every day of the week and saving probably £10 a week, if not more, on coffees, they've actually been able to put some money aside. And therefore, actually, they've cushioned. They haven't spent it on the foreign holidays. They've got some savings there. Which actually, once we get through this, could indicate that there's some consumer buying power there, which will give us that bounce as some economists are forecasting. However, there is another element of the population that have really, really struggled through the pandemic. That they've lost their job, they're relying on universal credit, they've really got some serious financial issues. And so the government has got a challenge in terms of the economy to make sure that we get consumer confidence going, but also that those people that have perhaps suffered during the pandemic financially, and there's a lot of those, how do we support those and generate enough taxation to provide the benefits that population needs, and also get them back to work, because unemployment isn't. So as we come out of lockdown, by then, I think we'll see a bounce on that. The long-term recovery will take longer. I would say it's probably 12 to 18 months. That's typically what you would see in a recession. The government will be focused on how quickly they can condense that 12 to 18 months to get us back to whatever that the new normal looks like.
But I might have
it wrong. I might have it wrong.
Some good crystal ball gazing there, Ian. Thank you. I've had the privilege of talking to a few business leaders over the last few weeks, and certainly Michelle and Graham, the aforementioned business leaders, they talked about Whitsun being a time for a sense of normality. And I think Graham agreed with that as well. Different sectors, one's from the rag trade and retail, one's from tourism and leisure. And But I think you're right. This kind of good weather does lift people's spirits. It does get us out. It just that vitamin D coming in. I think it's difficult. I was talking to one of our networking group leaders yesterday through WhatsApp, and I said, there's just, people are putting on a brave face. I sense that. Like you, I see small business owners each day in a different scale, of course. And I think people are putting a brave face on. I think it's because we didn't have an extended Christmas. For most people, we didn't have any family around us. It feels like it's just been one long run from when the days got short. And, that mental health thing is so important. Look, before I bring Sarah in, I just wanted to talk to you about your passion for diversity in the postgraduate. A lot of alliteration there as well. So tell us about the postgraduate you're doing. When do you start, and what's it all about?
Yes, this is relatively new. So as well as my day job, I've had a passion for diversity for a number of years. And actually, very quickly, I can give you the background to this. Is I remember at 5 years ago being invited to a female networking event to talk, and we talk about diversity. And there was a light bulb moment. One of my relationship managers said to me, when I go out and networking, I've got to think. And I went, what do you mean? And she said, well, look, Ian, if you're at a networking event, in those days when we actually used to meet up, and so Jamie says to me, we should meet up for a beer to continue this conversation. I would think nothing of meeting up with Jamie for a beer. A female might think, okay, well, do I want to meet up with a male for a drink? There's no. Look, 99.9% of cases it's fine, but she has that second thought, and it started getting me thinking, okay, what is the difference between a white middle-aged bloke like I am and if you're female? And that extended, and I really then started embracing the whole part of diversity. And it's all about being invited to the party, but also being invited to dance while you're there. So that kicked it off, and I was really keen to start understanding more broadly than that. So as I mentioned earlier, I joined school at 18. I didn't do a degree. I did my A-levels. I've done my banking exams, but that was about 30 years ago. So I thought let's look at this a bit wider. So I was really keen to go back to university in Wales because I had long time ago had an offer to go to Swansea University and decided to go into banking instead. So I've started in October a master's degree in diversity inclusion at the University of Wales, Trinity St David's. I'm pleased to say my first two modules have been in and they've been marked and I passed. So I've got through the first hurdle. But it's just fascinating. It is really, really fascinating. And I think the important thing for me with diversity is understanding the commercial benefits to it as well. It's important for society, but as a business leader, it's also understand there's a commercial benefit to doing this. And actually, so if you can get businesses talking about diversity, the society benefits, but so does the economy.
Thanks, Ian. Best of British luck with the course. I presume it's a year. Is it a year-long course?
3 years. Three years. Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
Good on you.
That's because I'm doing it part-time. I couldn't do a full-time course. I'm doing 3 years. Yeah.
We've got lots of questions coming in. There's one which I sometimes when people don't have a public profile as such, they come up as LinkedIn user. But hi, Ian. I'm a Swansea girl living in Bath, still passionately Welsh. I'm assuming your first job was in Wind Street.
So it's Wine Street, but yeah, you're English, so we'll let you off for that. I was actually I went to Ammanford, but I did work in Wine Street. It's now a wine bar, Jamie. So
really? Okay, well, look, that's the big important question. Okay, so once again, if you're just joining in, as it happens with live broadcasts, if you're watching on a restream, which LinkedIn very kindly will do for us, you're watching the Biz Live. My name is Jamie. I'm the host. The co-host is Sarah Brooks. She'll be coming in a moment's time to talk through some of the questions we've got, and we've got lots of questions to go through. So we'll keep the questions relatively tight, if that's right, Ian. I know you've got a hard out fairly soon, and thank you very much, everyone, taking part. You'll see you in a few seconds' time. Great. So our guest today is Ian Workman, the Managing Director of Barclays Business. We've heard a lot about his background. We've had some good advice. Now it's the time for you to ask some questions. So, Sarah, let's run through a few of the questions. We'll go through quite a few if we may.
Yes, absolutely. Loads of questions coming in, Jamie and Ian. And this question you've actually answered already, Ian, so you're already ahead of the game. This is from Paul Binning. He asks, is there an expectation that there'll be a mini boom at some point for certain industries like travel and entertainment, as people rush to enjoy their freedom and also spend the money that they've perhaps saved up during the time? But you've answered that. And I think, that is hopefully what's going to happen, but who knows? Anita Pickersgill just comments that, on your on what you were advising about looking into that crystal ball, and she says, it's really important to give your business an MOT. Don't forget that. Look at that. I just want to go to this question here from Jimmy Johns. What's your view of the funding market over the next 12 months? When May comes, people are going to have to repay these loans, aren't they? So could that be a challenge there that needs to be addressed?
So yeah, I think absolutely. So if we wind back to pre-pandemic, there was the EFG loan, which is a government-backed loan. I don't know, and again, I am guessing all this because I don't have a hotline to the Chancellor. But if I was in government, I'd be thinking, okay, when Bounce Back and Sybil's come to an end, what is the replacement product for them? So I'd sort of, if I was a betting man, and I'm not, I'd probably put some money on some sort of government-backed lending. Because the challenge will be for banks in that we clearly have to be responsible lenders. We have to protect our balance sheets. And therefore, with any lending, we have to be able to evidence that somebody can repay it. Okay. And I think some businesses are going to struggle with that. And I mentioned the forecasting. Yes, their business might need an injection of cash. But if their forecasting cash flow shows they can't repay it, it makes them very difficult to sort of get into that situation. Or there might be a lack of security, etc. So I think the government-backed scheme would be beneficial to businesses, and I think that would help liquidity. I think the issue, if I'm honest, I think is going to be all those customers that have taken bounce back loans and the Sybil's loans. It's trying to now think forward to how do you repay those loans, because they're not grants, they are loans, they do have to be repaid. And so all of a sudden you're going to have loan repayments coming out of your accounts that you didn't have previously. So again, when I talk about forecasting, you need to put that into it, because when you come to a loan for a loan from a bank, we are going to look at that. We are going to say, okay, what's your profit and loss like? What's your cash flow like? Let's add in the loan repayments. What does your cash flow look after that? And it's on that basis we'll make a decision on lending. So I think it's fair to say the banks will be cautious, but I think that's the right thing to do. We've got a lot of experience of coming out of recessions and how to manage that. We don't want banks failing because of lending. So cautious is probably the answer, Sarah.
And what about, just following on from that, Martin Lax asked what will happen once furlough ends, and of course there are people who've been on long-term furloughs. So what's your sense of what will happen to them?
Yeah, well, I think that will come to government support. And if I was the Chancellor, I'd be thinking, okay, you've now got unemployment all-time high. That's a cost to the country in terms of unemployment benefits, universal credit, etc. So job creation, and thinking about young people in particular. I know our sponsor today, Provincial Apprenticeships, they work really hard on that. And I think young people probably will need a lot of focus, because if you look at the unemployment statistics, a lot of those are under 25s. Some of those people, if you think about you're a 17, 18-year-old that left school last year, some of those still won't have had their first job because there's been no jobs for them to apply for. So we've got to get those people back into work, got to get them out there. And so I think, again, it'll be interesting to see what support is available for job creation, because that's the most important thing. And again, look, if the economy takes off, hopefully that will mean that some of those jobs that were previously furloughed actually become full-time again. And people actually who are currently unemployed will find work quite quickly. I'm always an optimist, Sarah. I'm always an optimist.
Well, I mean, I think it pays to have that kind of view, doesn't it? And that's what we're trying to do, really, is to come up with advice, but also realistic advice. And
that's
part
right.
of that is obviously projecting where you might be in the future and doing something now to mitigate against it, I guess. Just following on from what you were saying there about young people, Ian Porter asks, what can we do to support the pathway forward in education for young students?
Whoa, that's a really good question. Again, I think lots of big corporates are involved in things like that. Barclays has a life skills program for young people. I think there's big appetite from larger businesses to support programs like that. Now, that doesn't always have to mean an injection of cash, because if you think about the 1,000 relationship managers I've got at Barclays, they are fantastic. They're really experienced people. They're based in local communities. They can really support with programs like that. So I always think about two parts. One is the financial assistance, but the other bit, I think, don't undervalue the people that are out there, and particularly from business that have a wide range of experience, just to help those. I guess for me as a business person, what I'm saying, Sarah, is how do we create that entrepreneurial spirit, and how do we, really enthuse young people, old people, doesn't really matter, to really get up and start those businesses, like so many people have done on this on the program today.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to highlight something you said about consumer confidence. Which is something that is that you've kind of alluded to, and hopefully that will be built upon. But you also mentioned about the divergent population, which nobody seems to be kind of talking about, which you obviously have been looking at. Do you have any idea of what percentage of the population have been really hard hit? What are we looking at?
Yeah, I don't know, Sarah, to be honest. It's not a figure that I sort of I could probably find it out, but it's not a figure that that I would do. My colleagues that work in sort of the retail part of the bank would have their finger on the pulse on that. My focus is obviously supporting the businesses, so I don't know, if I'm honest. But do you know what, Sarah? Whatever the figure is, it's too high. And look, I'm apolitical on this. It's not about political support. It's about actually a society. One of the reasons I'm passionate about diversity is I think as the whole country, we're a rich country. We should just come together to make sure everybody gets an opportunity.
Yeah.
We've got time for another couple of questions, Sarah, if you're okay, Ian. Is that okay?
Absolutely, yeah, go for it.
Wonderful stuff. Okay, over to you, Sarah Brooks.
So you were talking about the summer needs to be good. What do you think is actually going to happen in the summer? Do you think, obviously we've had the Chancellor's budget in March, and you were kind of suggesting that might be, what kind of things do you think he might be able to do to encourage that good summer down the line?
Yeah, so look, his hands will be tied in terms of lockdown and also restrictions. So that'll be the thing. I think, look, as I mentioned earlier on, the big thing is retail and wholesale, hospitality and leisure. If I think about the Southwest, I love going down to Devon and Cornwall, for example. I understand, bookings are looking good for the summer, and lots of people are deciding they're not going to venture abroad this year, and therefore we really need the tourism business in places like the Southwest, in West Wales, etc., to really bolster to support that. But then more broadly, it's retail. We need to get those shops open. We need to get people going out and sitting in restaurants, etc. So that's what he'll be hoping for. Now, clearly, it depends on restrictions in place at that time. I think then also the other bit will be around education. I think actually getting the schools back, that's really important, because of course, don't forget, I have the privilege of homeschooling and all the stuff that goes with that with a 5 and 7 year old. Productivity has probably slipped. Now I don't have that statistic. I suspect somebody will analyze that in post pandemic, but how do we get productivity back up as well, which again the country needs. So I think I am really hopeful, Sarah, that we get some sort of bounce. It might be a mini bounce. It won't be long term, but it might just give us that boost to get into 2022, and that's when we'll start to see the real recovery.
Yeah,
good stuff.
I've just got a couple of things that have helped people get through the past year. So Martin Lax has said 11 from Dell UK. He's been very specific. Andy from NatWest Accelerator, and Jamie Breeze and All in Evo. So I've just picked that one out. And also Kieran Windsor says, what's helped him most over the last 12 months is taking time out to reflect. And I think that also goes to what Ian was saying about just thinking around what you're doing and trying to sort of do that sensitivity analysis to see what you can do sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And look, running a business can be a lonely place. That's the thing. It's particularly if you're an SME, and so actually the important thing is to talk to other businesses, because you won't be alone. The problem that you're facing, somebody else will have faced it somewhere. So my big piece of advice is just talk to each other, and you'll be amazed what that network will produce.
Thank you so much, Ian. Just wanted to chip in and to say this is just a gold mine of information. It really is. Our sponsor, Adam, wanted to pop into the studio, but he's having a connection problem. I think the two words, I'm having a connection problem and you're on mute, including myself, including one during the show, are the, in fact, I was thinking about giving all of my members for Christmas a ceramic mug saying you're on mute. But it's been actually fantastic today. Look, Adam can't be here and I wanted to bring him in. He's got a connection problem, so I must pay tribute to them because they sponsor the whole season. They're all about getting young people into business, and Adam was a beneficiary, as was Karina. So just very briefly, a key message from them is that they're working with huge numbers of employers, and they're using government-funded apprenticeships to train and then retrain their staff and their existing staff. The government fund of 95% of this cost of upskilling of staff. So, for example, the digital marketing course that they offer is 11 grand worth of training, but will cost an employer just £550 if you contact Adam. So that's 18 months of training and a nationally recognised qualification. Sounds like a good deal to me. And getting young people back into the workplace, which I know you would support and endorse anyone who's watching yourself, Ian. So, look, just wanted to sort of wrap things up and say, look, it's been fantastic, not in the crystal ball gazing, hearing about your inspiring journey through a company in very, very changing times and challenging times. We're getting lots of people coming in here. Sally's saying, fantastic event, thank you so much. Anita Pickerel, debt recovery and credit management. She says, hey, I want that mug now. I think we should go back to the 80s and run a competition where we give some mugs away. And then Rachel there's chimed in a few times saying, really interesting conversation. Can't wait for the next one. So just once again, thank you so much, Ian. Really, really grateful to you. And of course, everyone who's been watching today as well. Lots of people, more and more people will be watching on the repost and other platforms as well. So do continue to comment. And if you are revisiting this and have enjoyed or got a point to make, still do lob it into the comments and connect with people. Send a connection request. We're very grateful for LinkedIn giving us this golden ticket, as they said to me back in August last year. So let's use it. Let's bring this community together, particularly in the United Kingdom. And remember, it's been a rough ride, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. I know Ian would endorse that. So I'm going to say, first and foremost, thank you very much indeed to Sarah Brooks. I'm going to let you go to say our farewells to people in the chat. Thank you for moderating and commenting. Really, really grateful. Yeah, really grateful to have you on the show. We're having a sabbatical next week for a planning meeting. Then we'll be back again on Tuesday, the week after. So thank you very much indeed, Sarah Brooks. We will see you shortly. In fact, I'll give you a call straight after the show to say how well it went again. That's our common salutation. So thank you very much indeed again, Ian. What are you up to for the rest of the day? Sounds like I've just given you a haircut and I'm just making small talk, but I am interested. What does the rest of your day? What does the rest of the day? I'm not allowed to give you a haircut, even if one. So there you go.
No, exactly. I do need one. No, so I've got a bit of homeschooling to do, and then I've got so I do calls with our colleagues quite regularly. So I have a call this afternoon with colleagues where they will put me into the spotlight and ask me lots of difficult questions to support them in their job. So I love those because the one thing I can rely on in that call is they'll tell me exactly what life is like and what we need to fix as a senior leadership group. So that'll be interesting as well.
Is Ian going to be on tour again with Barclays fairly soon, visiting all the virtually, of course, all the different parts of the UK? Or
yeah, we've got some Facebook lives coming up. I suspect the next one will be more around the budget. So watch this space. But follow me on LinkedIn, and you'll find out all the details on there.
Well, that sounds like an invitation to connect. Anybody who's watching, all the thousands of people down the line who'll be watching this. That's very generous of you, Ian. Thank you so much. And, thank you for doing a bit for guiding the country through this crisis. 1 million businesses, that's quite a weight on your shoulder. And also spending time with us today and helping us get a sense of what's been going on and also giving us that inspiration. So once again, just a big thank you. If you are still watching, please do give us a hand with the little heart or the thumbs up for Ian as we say goodbye to Ian, and we welcome him again, no doubt, in the future. And we'll be seeing you soon because you're part of our Evo Ultra initiative, which is very good. You'll be leading our second group, which I revealed the other day to you without any consultation. It's called Evo Ultra Mercury. But I hope you like the name. And
absolutely.
Whoever is in your group of ultimately of 12 leaders, I'm sure is going to be in for a fantastic journey of business transformation. So watch this space. As I said, it's invite only, but if you are a CEO or chief executive of a significant business, then why not get in contact? We don't want to turn our nose up at the opportunity of getting to know you and maybe working with you in the group. So thank you, Ian, on every level for being so part of us, and also for supporting with John Lambert and other colleagues in Wales, our projects in Wales as well. So that's it. Goodbye, Ian Workman. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for the
have a
invite today.
lovely rest of the week, and thank you on behalf of us all. Thank you. And that just leaves me, just little me, to say thank you very much indeed for watching today. Tune in again in 2 weeks' time. We're having a small sabbatical, and just a big, big shout out and a thank you to our sponsors, Professional Apprenticeships. Adam did want to be here today. Tech has stopped him from doing that, but we will see you again soon. And don't forget, continue to comment and like, and come in again in 2 weeks' time. Look out for the emails if you've registered and take part. We'll be telling you who our very special guest in the studio, as it were, in 2 weeks' time is in about a week's time. So look out for an email and postings on LinkedIn. You've been watching The Biz Live. My name's Jamie Breeze. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week. Bye-bye.